This video is going to go step by step using the Conversational to generate 3 or 4 different parts and then put them on some tubes and save the G-code. So this is all the steps that you need to do. You start the software, click the 3D. My example, I'm going to do 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch box tubing with a 0.12 wall, 0.24 radius. My first part, I want it to be 24 inches long. It is steel, not aluminum, so I'm going to leave that unselected. Choose OK. First thing I'm going to do is place my holes. I know that I want a 1-inch diameter hole at the 0 on rotation, 2 inches from the end. I want that to be 4 inches from the end. And I want it to go all the way through. So click Apply, and then OK. Now I want another different sized hole. And I want this one to be 1/2 inch. And I want its rotation to be 90. And I also want it to go through, but I want it at 6 inches. And I would also like it to be at a 45-degree angle. Apply and OK. So here we have our 4 holes. Alright, now I need to do some end feature cuts. The first end I'm going to do a miter at 45 degrees. With a rotation of 90. Apply, OK. And the other end, I want this to mate up to a piece of 2-inch round tube at a 90-degree angle. And there's our first part. Next step would be to unroll the part. There's our flat pattern. We need to save this. It will default to the last folder you used. I'm using Test Customer and Test Contract. Feel free to create as many as you want or put them all in one. Again, you can also change the name here. Leave the .tcs. It defaults to the type of material, the outside dimension of the material, the wall thickness of the material, and the length of this part. I'm going to call this Part 1. And click OK. I want to do another one. This one's 12 inches long. This one's just a simple 30-degree miter at one end. And a 60-degree miter at the other. Again, we unroll. There's our path. Name this Part 2. We need to create another part. This one's 18 inches long. I need a hole in the center. Oops. A 1-inch hole in the center. That would be 9 inches. And I do in fact want it to go all the way through. Apply and OK. This one's just a straight cut off. We just need a hole all the way through it. Unroll. Part 3 and OK. Alright, at this point we can actually close the software. We've unrolled them. We have actual programs ready, TCS programs ready to create G-code from. I'm going to proceed to create some G-code. So I come into the nesting program. First thing I choose is my customer, my contract, and my material. This was pretty easy. I only have one selection. If you have multiple materials, then you're going to have multiple selections here. Round, box, whatever the case may be. And then when you select that material, any programs that are in those 2 folders, the flat patterns, will show up here. So there was the first part I created. Length, Part 2. Now this is the length after cut. So our part will be 24 inches. If you don't understand it's very hard to explain in a video. sitting at a computer. I need to do a video out in the shop and actually show what I'm speaking of. You have to remember that the torch is always perpendicular to the tube. So take a miter, for example. You cut a miter with a bandsaw or a cold saw. The outside wall, the wall itself on both ends, is also at a 45 degree. With this, it's going to be nubbed off. Now, the software actually corrects for that, so your piece center to center will still be fit in a correct spot. But when you measure it with a tape measure, it will not be 24 inches. So I get some people that call and they've never used any machine like this, and they're kind of confused by that. They're like, well, I mitered it. It's just a square cut at one end, and it's mitered at the other at 45, and my long point should be 24 inches. And it's not. It's 23.72, or it's 23 3/4. That's because it nubbed that off because it cut in perpendicular. If that projected out, it would have been 24. So it's actually going to fit exactly right. It's just the end of that wall is going to be squared. So again, that it's kind of, I probably just confused you even more, but that's the general idea. If that doesn't make sense, feel free to call me, shoot me an email. I can send pictures. I've got some pictures that explain it much better, with a piece that's been cut on a bandsaw and a piece that's been cut on our tube machine, and how they actually fit exactly in the same place. And I'm not trying to sound like a salesman, but there's actually some really nice advantages to it being cut with tube, because you don't have that real feather-thin edge when you miter. You actually have a blunt edge that you can put a weld into, and it actually has a little more beef than that really thin. Okay, so back to our example here. So the first thing I need to do is tell it what our stock length is. Usually that's uniform. I mean, in our area, box section comes in 24-foot lengths. Pipe typically comes 20 or 21. That's, not always the case, but 99% of the time tube comes in 288 lengths. So you tell it how many of these you have, because obviously if we tell it to cut more of these than we tell it we have quantity, it's not going to be able to do that. So I've got a lot of these. I've got 20 sticks of these. All right, part 1, we tell it how many we want, and I need 35 of those. I need 25 of those, and I need 10 of those. All right, when I click the nest button, so all we've done is we've defined our parts, we've unrolled them and saved them as a TCS. We've come in here, told it how much stock we have, took each of our parts that we want to cut, and told it how many we wanted to cut. Now, if we did not want to cut one of these, we can just unselect it or deselect it. Or we can invert, or we can select none, or we can select all. All right, so just because this is listed over here, so the next time you go to create 1.5 inch, these parts are still going to be in here unless you actually manually go delete them. Just unselect them. You don't want to cut them. You want to cut something else. All right, I'm going to cut all of these. I'm going to click Nest. It's going to ask me where to save it. I'm going to save it in my documents under sample G-code. Part 1_3. And I'm going to click Save. All right. We're going to get a nesting report here. And we can print the nesting report, or we can save the nesting report. Saving the nesting report has nothing to do with cutting. It's literally just to save this report right here. What this report tells us is how much of the material we've used. At the time this was generated, our stock inventory was 20 sticks, 288 inches long. These are the parts that we have generated for, so there's a total of 70 parts. And then it just starts listing the parts that are cut. So in the first piece, we've used 98.4% utilized. 17.4 inches is being cut off. 270.6 inches is actually being used for the part. And it processes all the way down through. All right, so where did that information go? Well, I told it to put it into my documents. You can put it anywhere. So we go here to my documents, to my sample G-code. You can see that we have a lot of programs. So a lot of people ask, well, why do we have so many programs? I just want one program. Well, you've told it to cut something that can't fit so much of a quantity it can't fit on one stick. So the first thing you'll notice is there's 3 of them that don't have the word nest in them. That is your 3 parts individually. So if you just wanted to cut one of those, you would load part 1, and it would cut 1 part, and that's it. It always does that. It always generates, no matter, I mean, you could have nested 50 different parts on there. You would have 50 different individual programs, and that's actually very, very handy, because your welder messes one up. One is messed up in you're doing round tube and using a tubing bender, and one gets damaged. You don't have to come back in here and try and create a program for one. It already has done that. So in this particular case, I want all of these parts, so I'm not even going to use these. All right? So you're going to notice that part 1.3, that's what I told it to name the nest. This is nest 5. STK stands for stick. 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this would be the first program I would load and cut. When it was done, I would load a new material on. If you don't have the auto load, if you have the auto load, it'll be automatic. If you don't have the auto load, you load the second material on. You load this program, cut it. Load your third material on, stick on. Load this program, cut it. Load your 4th stick on this program. Load your 5th stick, cut this program. And that's it.